Redditors who have outrun cops, how do you do it? Not sure if related. But having a police scanner as a teenager kept me more than one step ahead. A mate who had one of those saved our asses years ago. We were young. It was the end of high school and we were on a scavenger hunt. Obviously a few people had stolen people's stuff for points and members of the public had called the cops. Someone called the cops and reported 50 plus cars at the local cattle sale yards. A place that should be deserted at 10 PM on a Friday. We got a call from our scanner owning mate. Shouted at everyone there that the cops were inbound and the place cleared like something from a movie. Except 90% took the one tarred road out. And were met by cops. Those of us who knew the back dirt road floored it. Headlights off until we were a decent distance away. We escaped clean while a heap of others got a nice long lecture but no actual convictions. On foot versus cop car. Ran halfway into a residential block through backyards aware that they saw which direction I went. Once they were out of sight I doubled back and ran half into the block in the opposite direction. Sat quietly in a bush. They circled a few times and left that block. I didn't do anything. Just ran when a cop car drove by. I was a bored kid. Hanging out at friend's house when my mom texts me to inform me that my girlfriend is on her way back from college to surprise me. My girlfriend hated this dude. So I didn't tell her I was there and had recently told her I was home. I jump in the car and start flying home on a road I should definitely not be flying on. As God fated. I pass a cop and see him hit his brakes in my rear view. I instinctively floor it over the hill. Pull into a parking lot. And cut my lights off. Nighttime. Few seconds pass and I see him fly by with his wee-woos on. With no time to spare I pull back out soon after and finish flying home. Run inside. Jerk my clothes off. Lay on the couch. Turn on the TV. And she knocks on the door not 5 seconds later. Mission accomplished. I didn't outrun them. I outplanned them. We were throwing a party in some woods that were owned by a construction company. Months went into preparation for this. We had to bushwhack paths to this clearing. But we also made fake paths that led nowhere. At the back of the clearing. We also made escape paths in case the cops did come. Which of course they did. All of our paths had glow sticks on them. But different colors to different path. Only people who were invited knew which color led to the party. This also meant that a force of 4-6 cops had to be split up and get turned around. As soon as we knew cops were coming, we made for the escape paths which led out to a street at least 3/4 of a mile away. Most of us managed to slip out, the ones not passed out. And some of us even went back to the entrance where we could watch the confusion unfold. Good times. I was in a car accident and the driver was obviously drunk as was I. We ended up hanging upside down in Scionza after flipping the car 3 times in a neighborhood. We had actually been chased by these guys who I had beef with because I dated one of the dude's exes. We knew there was no way to flip the car and I unbuckled my seatbelt, asked if the other guys were okay and then booked it into the golf course. I laid there all night. The cops searched everywhere but I could see them from this patch of trees on the course. 2 times they shined their light right on the area I was but never found me. I did however have to spend a night in jail for fleeing the cops and then the BS about it was the charge was dropped because that only accounts for the driver. I think they were just pissed they couldn't find me. Edit. I had to call the cops the next morning because they already knew who I was due to the other guys saying I was with them. But they didn't catch me. I basically turned myself in. Open bracket. Ran maybe 5 times. Got away twice. We took over an abandoned mansion for a party. Cops came and one found me gathering my party lights. The cop says have a seat on the ground while we were in a room with an open patio door. I turned to sit down. But was actually pivoting to sprint. I ran. He said oh shit as I ran out the door. I hurdled over a hedge and landed running. Down an ivy covered hill to the street and left with the crowd. Another time was a vehicle. Straight out of the movies. I glanced a parked cop out of the corner of my eye and I had just done something that warranted his attention. Driving reckless I imagine. He peels out of his parking spot and I turn a corner. A hotel with underground parking was on that corner and I dipped in. Parked. Turned the car off. Saw the cop pass by. IO bonus. Had a girl in the car. She married me. Hotboxing a truck with some friends of a friend's senior year in an empty parking lot of some park. Already high as FCK. When suddenly the Taco Bell we had gorged on earlier is going apeshit in my bowels and holy shit I need a bathroom. I stumbled my way to the public restroom on the other side of the parking lot. I finish and as I'm about to walk out I see what looks like red lights illuminating the entrance. I start losing my shit. I know it's cops and everyone's high as FCK. At this point I knew my friends are FK'd. Full stop. What the FCK should I do? I retreated in the farthest stall and texted my parents saying I was crashing at some dude's house. Ended up falling asleep in the stall. Woke up the next morning and got another friend to pick me up. Got away. No one ratted me out. And that's how Taco Bell simultaneously destroyed and saved my ass at the same time. Not really outrun. More like not detected at all. I was at an apartment party that was on the lowest level. So the patio allowed you to just walk out. My friend heard a knock on the door. Not even a loud knock. And went to look through the peephole. I watched him do it and nobody else noticed but I saw him look through. Walk over and grab his backpack. And I got up and started following him out the back patio door. As soon as we get outside I said cops. He just nods and we keep walking. We get to the front of the building to get back to my car and see a cop car right by the exits to the parking lot. The way the complex was set up. There were two buildings facing away from each other with a strip of grass in between them. Inside the car was still an officer who didn't see us yet because it's 1 AM and we're both black. We see him start to get out of his car and we sat our backpacks down behind a bush right next to someone else's patio. Both backpacks filled with weed and alcohol. Sit down at the random patio and light up cigarettes and pretended like we're just having late night smoke and we live there. Cop walks past and we wait until he gets to the party and then pick up our backpacks and drive home. We later found out the police cornered the people in the party from both exits and cited everyone inside. It was easy for them because it was like 25 people maximum. Sorry if I'm a little late to the thread but I'm actually able to contribute to a thread. The trick into dodging the cops is to maximize your time. I cannot stress this enough. When you are committing any illegal activity, you must have some sort of escape plan in the back of your mind. You can't come off a tangent and devise an escape plan when you are foiled. You'll lose your valuable time and get caught. When devising a plan you have to consider everything. From the car you are driving to the shoes you are wearing, everything is a factor. Even though this is probably going to get buried. I hope I helped at least one person dodge the fuzz. About 12 years ago I managed a getaway. Small town with windy back roads. Went around a big corner and managed to get out of sight for a few seconds. I quickly went down some random driveway that was lined with huge trees so he couldn't see me as he drove by. Backed out after what felt like 100 years, probably 1 minute, and drove straight home. Luckily he had only been after me for 10 seconds at most so my plate wasn't called in, though I forgot to consider this at the time. I was speeding down the turnpike in the cars and trucks side. At like 4 AM. And passed a cop who was parked on the shoulder with his lights off. As his lights went on and he pulled out to get me, I pulled into the service area. I sped through the service area and exited again. But this time I pulled onto the cars only lane. I slowed down and took the next exit. He was still on the cars and truck lane. I was on foot in a dense urban area doing something that I shouldn't have been doing. A car parked across the street springs to life and starts driving aggressively towards me. It was an unmarked cop car. I spotted the car pretty early so I had a bit of a head start. I ran down a nearby set of stairs that led to a walking path that connected to a train station. Once I broke the line of sight from the car I ducked between the buildings down a different set of stairs that led into an alley. Ran down the alley a bit and took off my coat and hat and stashed them to change my appearance. Then I just walked as casually as I could back into the street. I got pretty lucky. I knew the area well enough that I was pretty sure I could get away. Plus I had enough of a jump on them that they never followed me on foot and instead ended up circling around in their car, but by that point I had already stashed my coat and hat and was doing my best to play it cool. They drove past me as I was on the street walking away, but they never stopped me. On my motorcycle, broad daylight. So I was on my way to my buddy's house from the funeral we just had for his brother. My other buddy had been riding with me during the funeral and his bike broke down. So we stopped and got his bike and were on our way. My buddy is in the lead, another buddy in a car with a police scanner is between us, and I'm at the back. We were almost there. We turn onto Lawrence and the cop lights me up. My buddy in THW car in front freaks out and pulls over. I cut into oncoming traffic, dropped a second and I'm gone. Cop chased MD for 3 miles in the middle of the day in heavy traffic. I was squeezing through spots that were too small. Running the lights. Doing about 140 on my motorcycle. Weenie got on the highway and cut across to the shoulder and took off again is when they stopped chasing me. Well, it turns out my temporary plate had corroded and was not visible, and because I looked suspicious, although I thought I looked nice. Anyway, it turned out half of the funeral guests watched me start the chase and half were at the finish line. When I got to the house for the reception, everyone was coming up to me telling me how gnarly it was that I did that on that day. That was my third chase via motorcycle. Was on my way to my buddy's house at about 16-17 years old. Flying down this back road doing about 85 in a 45. Round a corner pretty fast I saw a cop on the side of the road up ahead with just his red dome light on in the car. Could have slowed down, but made the genius decision to floor it because I was so close to my friend's house. Called my buddy and yelled at him to open his garage. Saw the copper turn his lights on right after I passed. I was able to speed the remaining 1-2 miles to my friend's house. Pull in the garage and close it before he saw. It was definitely adrenaline rushing. Went outside his house a few times that night to smoke, and there were cops driving around the neighborhood all night. Waved at them every time they passed, lol. I feel like many of these stories are when we were 17. Anyway. I was about 17 and was skateboarding at a local elementary school with some friends at night when 2 cops pull up. The neighborhood was pretty vast and lots of houses had fences. So my 2 buddies and I booked it. And they took off after us. We jumped quite a few fences and the cops were ruthlessly following us. So we jump another fence and make a right angle to another backyard where we hid in these bushes for like 30 minutes while they walked around trying to find us. Super close call. Damn small town cops. This happened over the summer. I was leaving a car meet and driving back home on the highway, cruising with 3 other cars from the meet. It was a wide open highway at like 1 AM, so naturally we were cruising at around 100 miles per hour. Off in the distance behind us I see some flashing lights and my heart dropped. I just left off the gas and started letting the car slow down without touching the brakes. The cop catches up to us fairly quickly and the next thing I know one of the other cars just takes off. The other 2 cars take off soon after. The cop that catches up to me, and at this point I'm still going 80-85. I thought for sure I was going to get pulled over. But nope, the cop just drove right by me and took off after the other 3. I got off at the next exit and drove back to my apartment. Nothing ever happened after that. So I technically didn't outrun the cops, but I didn't get caught, so that must count for something, right? I was 14 and took my mom's car for a joyride like a jackass. Popped the passenger side front tire and freaked out, so I was driving it home on the rim. I had a cop turn on the cherries when I pulled into my neighborhood and freaked out some more and pinned it. I was doing about 80 kmph with sparks flying off the rim and my friend in the passenger seat yelling, "Let me out. I can't get caught by the cops." I told him to tuck and roll because we weren't going that fast and kept it pinned until I got home and parked in the garage. Somehow managed to dodge the cops but had to face my parents' wrath the next day. I have a good feeling the cops saw that it was a couple of kids out the vehicle and figured bringing home mom's car with a missing tire and absolutely F-ked rim would be enough trouble for me to learn my lesson. Definitely not something I'm proud of. When I was in the Air Force I lived on base at Fort Warren in Cheyenne. It's pretty common for a highway patrolman to sit at the on-ramp nearest the base. So me and my friend would race from that ramp to the front gate of the base. Less than 2 miles. Since we were both MPs, we'd know the guard at the gate and get waved on without an ID check. When the highway patrol got to the gate, they'd have to show ID and explain why they wanted on base, as well as be told by the guard they didn't know who just came through. This was around 2008 to 2011-ish. Much younger. And dumber then. Relatively small downtown area. Was coming into town in a 45-mile-per-hour area and the cop was coming the other way, directly at me. I was probably doing about 20 miles per hour over the limit and he lit my ass up with a radar gun. He passed me. And I saw him turn around in my rearview mirror and flick on the lights. Generally I would never run. But I was 18 and was one speeding ticket away from losing my license on points. I gunned it. Got into town and just weaved through a bunch of side streets until I was pretty sure I lost him. Here's the kicker. I'm pretty sure I lost him. And now I need to get onto the main highway quickly. I'm sitting at a red light. Why I got for the light to turn. And guess who goes right through the intersection in front of me? It was 1 AM or so. So not many cars on the road. My headlights went right into his car as he went in front of me. Enough that I could clearly see the guy. 18-year-old Mishtia Brick. Cop kept going and I gunned it to get onto the highway. Was in my very fast Mini Cooper. 2.0L. Twin turbos. Many custom parts. Matte black with gloss black stripes. Black rims. And odd. Racing on Stero Drive in Boston. I blasted by a statey doing at least 120. His car may match mine in HP. Give or take. But I'm half the mass and can handle circles around him. Changed jurisdictions. Took the B.U. bridge heading through Alston to the Brighton-Cambridge line. And I see a 4-bay mom and pop car wash. I can hear like 10x the sirens now. So we J-turn in. And jump up and pull the gate down. Lucky us. It's tended by a 16-year-old kid we come to find. As we roll around back, I handed him $100 and said to pull the other garage door down and mark this bay out of order with a sign. If the car was still there upon our short return, I'd give him more money. Went to the bar across the street. Had some wings. Beers. Watched the last 4 innings of a Sox game. Brought the kid some hot wings. A Mountain Dew. And $200 cash upon our return. Drove the car home. No issues. Got off scot-free. Riding with a friend to a fight that was about to happen. Friend runs his truck off the road and bends the drive shaft, or something. Continue driving to the fight as the whole truck wobbles. Cops bust the fight and everyone ran, because we were stupid. Jump in the truck and nearly hit a cop car that tries to box us in the parking lot. Pull out and driving down the highway, speed limit 60, doing 40 miles per hour while the truck wobbled. 2 other cars from the fight plus 1 cop pull out and are following behind us. 4-lane highway. No clue why they don't go around us instead of cruising 40. Drive about a half mile till one idiot behind us whips around and starts driving backwards on the highway still on our side of the highway. Cop turns around to follow him. Continue driving about 100 yards and hide out at a gas station for a few minutes before heading back home in the same direction we came from. Wanted level lost. I got jumped in the middle of town by a bunch of dudes as some sort of gang initiation when I was 14. Afterwards I went to the police station with a broken nose and f-ed up jaw. The cop told me it was my fault for the way I was dressed, black jeans and a black band shirt, and it's not his job to solve my problems and I should take matters into my own hands. This cop was a real arsehole to every kid out there. One of my friends knew where he lived so we went and took a shitty on his cop car and smashed up a bunch of his panels and windows with a bat. He came out of his house and tried to give chase but we outran him. Felt good taking matters into my own hands. On my way to a concert on a motorcycle. I was kinda racing another bike up the highway. Went past a state boy at about 100 miles per hour and jumped off the next exit, the correct exit for the concert. Basically I was able to get past the line of traffic into the event and scoot around a gate that was closed by riding onto the footpath. Made my way to an area where there was literally 100+ bikes. Ditched my helmet. Removed the jacket and sat on a picnic table while they went around and around and around looking for me. So, not so much outran but outplayed. Thankfully, they never got close enough to read my plate. Running into the woods from a bonfire party. Knew from previously running into the woods where the barbed wire fence was and how to get through it. The cop in the dark did not. He was 15 feet behind me. Then 100 feet behind me real fast. Wasn't worth giving me the mip, so he turned back after that. Yeehaw. If he had seen my face I wouldn't have run. With my car, among everyone else's sitting there. I would have felt way too paranoid driving later. I was doing graffiti. Midday. Inside of a bridge, on the beams supporting it below the walkway above. I had some friends keeping watch for any looky-loos near the climb into the bridge when some police arrived looking for people playing on the ice. This was also our doing. Russian Prince Vodka does crazy things, and they told them they saw nothing of the sorts. At this point the police just stopped and started gazing off. Their line of vision just below that of my friend and I. Silently standing on a support clearly in sight. Paints in hand. They stared for what felt like an eternity before heading off down the hill below us. Horrifying. Lived in a small town in high school doing donuts after hours in school parking lot with some friends. We were having a blast getting dizzy in my old 92 Accord and we hear a guy yell. Notice it's a guy on an evening walk and thought he called us cocks. One of the guys said no. Cops man. So I pull out like everything is cool and he turns around behind me. Nowhere to pull over until we cross the road. I assume why he didn't blow light me. I waited for a string of cars and pulled across giving him no time to follow. I then went to the SS building which had cars parked outside 24/7. It was just getting dark so I slid in between two cars. Killed the lights and the engine and sat quietly. We saw the cruiser drive by slowly and the guy looking around for us. Good times. So I didn't outrun a cop. But I did trick one. Let's just say I have a checkered past involving drugs and the sale of drugs. Anyways. So I get pulled while I have a gram of cocaine in my glove box. The cop knows I'm jacked up and wants me to be honest with him. Swearing bullets. I confess to having a gram of coke and tell him I'm down on my luck and will do anything to get out of the charge. No shit. This gullible ass officer has me call my girlfriend to come pick me up while he takes the gram and dumps it onto the wet grass. He tells me I need treatment and if he sees me on that side of town again I'm FK'd. 10 minutes later the GF shows up and we drive off with the 2 ounces tucked up under the spare tire in the back. I've been clean 12 years now but I'll never forget the joy I felt knowing I narrowly avoided federal trafficking charges. Probably gonna get buried but this actually happened like 4 months ago. My friend. Let's call her C. Got a new Camaro. Like a 2016 or 2015 Camaro. One night after studying, giving up and then drinking, my other friend who was in the passenger seat. Let's call him Ishmael. Decided it was a great idea to do circles around a mall parking lot at 2 AM. What we didn't know, though, was that there was a cop truck a block away just doing cop stuff. So, about 2 circles in and the cop truck lights go on. And Ishmael decided it was a great idea to just try to get away. His reasoning was that a recent Camaro could beat a Silverado truck or whatever truck it is in my city. So, in a number of maneuvers, we do 3 left turns and 2 right turns while the truck drove straight just to get out of the parking lot. After that, we drove about a half mile to the end of that road. Did a crazy close U-turn, which almost got us killed cause we ran a red light, although it was a Monday night and no one was out that late, and a passenger bus was driving full speed through the other street. Drove half a mile back, and turned right into another friend's housing complex. Told the guard not to tell the police chasing us that we were in there, and drove back out later in another car. We lost the cops on that last right turn. By a lot. Well, for starters, I ran away from the cops at a cross-country meet in high school. The course was located right next to an abandoned mental institution, so me and a few teammates decided to explore the grounds a little bit. That consisted of passing some police tape and such. A couple patrol cops heard us making noise, and once we noticed them we just jetted it. I assume the cops decided to say FCK it because we were obviously there for the cross-country meet and there was no way in hell they were gonna catch us. I was at my friend's day party when I was 17. Chillin' in his room with the door locked. His dad kicked it down and started yelling the cops are f***ing raiding my house. Everyone get the FCK out. So me and two of my friends jump out the window. As soon as we're all out we hear a cop yell, if you f***ing move I'll shoot you. So naturally the three of us all take off in a diff direction. I ran about 5 feet and tripped. I got back up and run into the street and get hit by a patrolling Cook County cop. I get up and take off. I could feel him behind me. I was a yard away from my best friend's house. So I baseball slide through some thick bushes and ran and hid under his porch. 10 minutes later a cop pulled into his driveway and sat there for what seemed like an hour. Then the cop drove away and I broke into his bottom window and hid in his shower until he came home. So I go to a university that has a statue of the major south of campus. After a night of heavy drinking, my friends and I decided it would be a good idea to climb it. So in the middle of the whole thing a cop shows up and turns on the cherries. I should mention we're all minors. So I yelled cop, dashed into campus, and ran inside a building I knew was always open. About 30 minutes later I had seen the cruisers drive off, so I went outside. Saw my friend sitting in a bush. Went home. Talked about his awesome and scary it was. 10/10 would not try again. I was on a 4-lane state highway and was supposed to slow to 45 to pass through an intersection with a traffic light. I didn't really think about it and continued at about 70 miles per hour. I looked to my left and saw a police car sitting at the red light on the opposite side of the highway. I saw him flip on his lights. There were several trucks behind me traveling at 50 miles per hour or so, and it took the officer a minute to make the turn. Hoping to curry favor with the cop, I pulled over to the shoulder. The passing trucks, in the slow lane, blocked the cop's view of me as he shot past in the fast lane. I sat there for 2 minutes or so, terrified that he would think I deliberately evaded him. My whole drive home I imagined trying to explain it but never saw him again. I went to college on a sprinting hurdling scholarship. I mean, running fast was my thing. So it's not like outrunning an average cop was all that hard. I also used to really be into graffiti. And was out tagging one night with another friend on the team. Turns out we weren't as careful as we thought. And a cop rolled up on us. We were tagging a giant storage crate in a train parking lot when the cruiser rolled up on us. Pulled up around the far side of the crate. And we took off. On foot. You're much more agile than someone in a car. Run 50 meters in one direction to get the car rolling. Then cut back 180 and take off the other way. And don't stop running. We hopped the fence at the edge of the lot. And that was really it. We ran a few blocks to get to where we left my truck. And from there, just drove on home. I have a few extremely fast bikes and cars, so I've ran more than once. It's basically easy mode on the bikes, all 1000cc. Once I see the blue lights I just take off until I am out of sight and then reduce the speed and get home ASAP. Cause you have to be very careful. There is zero time for hesitation. And unless you're on the highway or back roads, it is generally not in your favor. I've only had to run in town once but would not do it again.